Our Russian models win hearts not only in their own country but all over the world. However, the reality is that very often behind incredible beauty and a luxurious lifestyle, there are very serious hardships. Today, in this video, we will take a closer look at 3 stories of Russian girls, Russian models who faced depression, sexual violence, or betrayal by those close to them. Ruslana Korshunova, a girl known to millions for the famous Nina Ricci fragrance commercial. Despite her youth, beauty, and a dazzling career, her life was cut short at the height of her fame. To this day, there is still debate about the reasons that drove her to take her own life. Ruslana's journey in the world of fashion and beauty began completely by chance and unexpectedly. She was born in the city of Almaty and had not planned a modeling career. A photo of Ruslana as an Amazon accidentally caught the eye of Davy Jones, a scout from the British modeling agency Models One. The girl's unusual beauty, which would later earn her the nickname Russian Rapunzel, did not leave her indifferent. The path to this contract was not easy. Ruslana's mother was categorically against it. The girl was still very young, and her mother was simply worried about her daughter and did not want to let her go abroad to work as a model. But ultimately, the opportunities that awaited Ruslana and the financial aspect of the matter convinced her mother to let her go abroad. Her debut at New York Fashion Week was triumphant. This was followed by shows in London, Paris, and Milan, photo shoots with renowned photographers, and contracts with leading brands. Clarins, Kenzo, Vera Wang, Dior, Moschino, and many others. It seemed like this was just the beginning and there was so much more ahead. Nothing foreshadowed the tragic end of Ruslana. The model's fees reached $5,000, which she sent to her family in Kazakhstan. True success came with the advertisement for the Nina Ricci fragrance, which made Ruslana recognizable far beyond the fashion world. The image of a fairy tale princess in a pink dress won the hearts of viewers. Ruslana's popularity also attracted wealthy men. She had several romances. After meeting businessman Alexander, Ruslana moved in with him, hoping for a serious relationship and even to meet his family. But unfortunately, Ruslana's dreams of having a family were not meant to come true. Alexander left her, which drove her into a deep depression. The young woman lost a lot of weight and started working less. After this story with businessman Alexander, there was another romance with a car dealership owner who was known for his fondness for models, but that one also ended unsuccessfully. Despite her attractiveness and career success, Ruslana's personal life still left much to be desired. And of course, these constant breakups and betrayals could also have contributed to Ruslana ultimately leaving this life. It's already been 16 years since Ruslana's death, but the debates still haven't subsided. The reason why she decided to commit suicide is still unknown. The young woman was found dead under the windows of her apartment in Manhattan. At that time, she had just a little bit left until her 21st birthday. Back then, the police closed the case rather quickly since everything pointed to it being just an ordinary suicide. Of course, interest in this whole story was further fueled by the recent release of certain documents. The first point I want to discuss is the shadow of the Lolita Express and how it affected the girl. Declassified documents have recently revealed that Ruslana, approximately 2 full years before her untimely death, was observed to have flown on a private jet, which was unequivocally owned by a certain Jeffrey Epstein. He had already been accused of organizing sex trafficking with minors. This Epstein had his own island where he was engaged in exactly that, namely, all sorts of things like that with other businessmen and planes that almost always had different models or just beautiful women on board. The girls called it the Lolita Express, and Ruslana spent several days there. On that remote and isolated island, it's currently unknown exactly what activities they were undertaking there, but it's quite safe to definitively say that those few incredibly intense days could have seriously and profoundly traumatized her delicate psyche. A young girl who had just broken out of an ordinary town in Kazakhstan, who came from a regular family and might simply not have been prepared for all the horrors of the glamorous, wealthy life. Most likely she just wasn't ready for this dark side of the world of big money and high fashion. The next theory is the involvement of a cult in Ruslana's death. This theory emerged thanks to the investigation by journalist Peter Pomerantsev. In his book, he describes the training center Rosa Mira, whose clients included many models, among them Ruslana and her friend Anastasia Drozdova. Both girls, incidentally, took their own lives. It is claimed that Rosa Mira used various psychological techniques that are very similar to those used by cults to create dependency and submission in people. These trainings were simply presented as personal growth seminars. But many friends and acquaintances note that after these seminars, both Ruslana and her friend Anastasia, who was also a model, their behavior changed. They became more aggressive and more withdrawn. Many prominent experts unequivocally claim that without a shadow of a doubt, such profoundly destructive cults can significantly worsen an already precarious and unstable emotional state. However, Ruslana Korshunova's former agent, Vladislav Novgorodtsev, denies that Rose of the World had any influence on her death, claiming that she had previously been prone to depression and suicide attempts. In any case, there is no definitive answer. Perhaps Rose of the World was simply a catalyst that further worsened the situation. The third theory concerns financial difficulties. The fact is that in addition to psychological difficulties, Ruslana also faced the harshness of the modeling business. She discovered that her agency was simply deceiving her and pocketing her fees. The money was kept for themselves. At that point, Ruslana filed a lawsuit for $500,000. Just imagine the situation. A young girl moves not just to a neighboring city, but to another country. She went to America alone. In this new country, she had no one, just strangers all around her. And essentially, the only people close to her were from the modeling agency. They were the only ones she could trust, but in the end, they betrayed her. So many questions remain unanswered. What happened to Ruslana when she went to that island? Was she subjected to violence? How did it affect her? Is it true that the Rose of the World trainings are a cult and have a very negative impact on the psyche? What were the details of this story with the money? Maybe one day we will learn the truth. But for now, Ruslana's story is a reminder that behind the beautiful picture, the bright spotlights, and incredible beauty, something else can be hidden: despair and depression. Regina Zbarskaya was a bright star of Soviet fashion. She was one of the first Soviet models who had the opportunity to conquer foreign runways. She was called the Kremlin's most beautiful weapon and the Soviet Sophia Loren. Regina Zbarskaya became a model about whom films are made and real legends circulate. At 17, full of dreams, the young woman sets out to conquer Moscow, where she enrolls in university and dreams of a career in film. Social and bohemian parties, frequented by artists, directors, and actors, play a very big role in Regina's life. It was immediately clear to Regina that her beauty and youth were powerful weapons and that she needed to use them. However, her appeal was not limited to her beauty. Regina Zbarskaya could easily hold a conversation. She possessed erudition and was simply a pleasant young woman. Regina skillfully balanced these kinds of parties with her studies. She always passed her exams with top marks. At one of these parties, she met a fashion designer who saw in her not just a beautiful girl, but the potential to become a successful model. From her very first days on the job, it was clear that the designer had not been mistaken. Regina seemed to have a natural talent. She knew how to move, how to present herself, how to highlight her best features and hide her flaws. Until 1960, Regina Zbarskaya was the most popular model at the fashion house. Regina stood out among the other girls, and her star shone brightly in 1961 in Paris during the World Exhibition. The show featuring her caused a real sensation, and the French media proclaimed Regina the most beautiful weapon of the Kremlin. Even Fellini and Fidel Castro. After returning to her homeland, Regina was in for a new chapter in her life. The thing is, her beauty was now noticed not only in the fashion world but also by those in power. Regina began to mingle with politicians and businessmen, and yet the true nature of all these meetings remains unknown. There were rumors that Regina was being considered for recruitment into intelligence, but she later denied these rumors. She said that she was too freedom-loving to be a spy. But we have to understand that the truth is something we are unlikely to ever know. Despite all the mysteries, a bohemian life blossomed around her. She was friends with Vyacheslav Zaitsev, the Soviet and Russian fashion designer. And she attended social dinners where she was admired by none other than Sophia Loren, the Italian film actress and singer. But behind the glamorous facade, there were also quite understandable dreams. Regina wanted to get married and start a family. However, the many suitors who courted her did not attract her. Until she met Lev Zbarsky. It was precisely thanks to her husband that Regina Zbarskaya gained access to Western culture. She became part of new social circles, and she met popular, well-known artists and actors. However, the love did not last long. In 1967, Regina became pregnant. But it turned out that her husband, Lev, saw her only as a muse, not as a real wife, not as the mother of his children who would raise them and cook borscht in the kitchen. Here's an interesting point. Lev said he didn't want children, but it turned out he didn't want children specifically with Regina, because soon after their divorce he left for another woman who gave birth to his son. Regina had an abortion, after which she was never able to have children again. When she found out that her husband, or rather her ex-husband Lev, had moved to the USA, and moreover, to be with another woman, she simply couldn't and didn't want to go through that. That was when she had her first mental breakdown. And it's important to understand that after such circumstances, people are always sent to a psychiatric hospital. As you can probably already tell, Regina she survived, but was sent to a clinic. After undergoing treatment in the hospital, Regina was discharged. She once again got a job at the fashion house. She also tried to rebuild her personal life. Regina met a Yugoslav journalist and they began a passionate affair. But happiness did not await Regina here either. It turned out that the journalist had betrayed her and wrote an entire book, which he titled 100 Nights with Regina Zbarskaya. I think you can imagine what the content of that book was. Yes, aside from all sorts of erotic moments and the model's preferences, the journalist also described her attitude toward the authorities. Specifically, he wrote about how Regina criticized the Soviet government. He also revealed exactly what Regina had said about informing the KGB on her colleagues. This work caused a huge public outcry. The book was quickly banned, but Regina started getting invited to various... Of course, no one bothered to find out whether any of it was true or not. Regina was summoned for interrogations. And Regina once again could not bear such betrayal and the tarnishing of her reputation. She wanted to end her life for the second time. And once again she ended up in a psychiatric hospital. The political scandal finally destroyed the fragile mental health of the model. On the 15th of November 1987, Regina tried to take her own life for the third time, and this time she succeeded. The model could not overcome the painful memories of betrayal and disappointment, and a tragic story of a beauty who could not find happiness in love and lost faith in people. A television series was made about the model's life, full of ups and downs, betrayal and mysteries. The Red Queen. Ksenia Punts is a well-known model and music video actress. However, her name only truly became recognizable after a dark period began in the model's life. And she ended up in intensive care. But fortunately, our last third story has a happy ending. We couldn't possibly end on a bad note, could we? Her modeling career began at a young age. By the age of 18, she was already shining on the pages of magazines such as Elle, Aeroflot Style, and Vogue Russia. Ksenia took part in a Gloria jeans advertising campaign and in a show by Alexander Arutyunov. Soon after, she decided to try herself as an actress and made her debut in the music video for the band Nana's song Zinaida. She then appeared in the music video for the song Klopya lechat naverh, The Flakes Fly Up, by the artist Feduk. In 2020, Ksenia was hospitalized with severe injuries. The fact is, she was found in very light clothing, without shoes, under the windows of an apartment. Doctors diagnosed her with a fractured pelvis, internal organ contusions, and a concussion. The apartment beneath whose windows she was found belonged to Andrei Bakov, the son of actress Anna Mikhalkova. He is the grandson of director Nikita Mikhalkov. There were many rumors about the reasons for Ksenia's hospitalization. What was known for certain was that Ksenia had fallen out of a window. Among the possible reasons mentioned were an accidental fall from the window, as well as being under the influence of alcohol. However, Ksenia's close friends insisted that she always led a healthy lifestyle. But of course, the most frightening version was that Ksenia didn't just fall out of the window, but was pushed specifically by Andrei, the son of the famous director. After some time, the circumstances became clear. First of all, doctors stated that the injuries Ksenia sustained did not indicate that any violence had been inflicted upon her. There was no sign of violence. When Ksenia regained consciousness, she also confirmed this account. It was all due to carelessness. Ksenia was simply sitting on the window with the door open and accidentally fell out. Of course, there are people who doubt this whole story, who think it's unlikely that Ksenia could have fallen out of the window by herself, but at least this is the official reason and there is no other information. It's unlikely that you or I will ever find out more. Thanks to her good physical condition, Ksenia recovered quickly. She was discharged from the hospital after 2 months, and just 6 months later, she returned to work. Despite the scars all over her body, she continued working as a model. That's another extra motivation to do sports. If something suddenly happens, your body will recover quickly thanks to good physical fitness. As for Ksenia, she's doing well now. She lives in Asia and runs her own blog. She continues to work as a model. All these stories show us that good looks and a successful career are not a guarantee of a happy life. Anything can happen. Even people who seem to be living their perfect lives face depression, violence, and various difficulties. Thank you for watching, friends. Subscribe to the channel and see you in the next video. Bye bye, everyone.